Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life where the weight of regret becomes unbearable. A moment when a person realizes, not all at once, but in pieces, that they have lost something truly irreplaceable. And by the time they understand what they had, it's already too late. The tragedy of human nature is that we only recognize value when it slips through our fingers. People become so comfortable with your presence, your kindness, your patience, that they begin to believe it is guaranteed. They assume you will always be there to listen, to support, to stand by them, until one day you're gone, and then the haunting begins. Regret does not arrive as a single moment of sadness. It is a relentless storm that returns over and over again. It is the empty chair at the dinner table, the silent phone that will never ring again, the echoes of laughter that now sound like ghosts in their memory. They will replay the times they dismissed you, the times they hurt you, the times they assumed you would never leave. They will realize that your absence is not just a void, it is a punishment they brought upon themselves. But hear me now, their regret is not your burden. The fact that they let go of someone like you is not a reflection of your worth, but of their blindness. You are not defined by their inability to appreciate you. If anything, their regret is proof of how much you mattered, proof that you were never the problem. So walk forward with your head high, because the regret of losing you will haunt them forever. And you will thrive. The price of ignoring value. In life, we often fail to recognize the true worth of the people around us until they are no longer there. It is a fundamental human flaw, the tendency to overlook what is constant, to take for granted what seems secure. We assume that the kindness we receive, the support we rely on, and the presence we grow accustomed to will always be there. But reality is not so forgiving. The moment someone decides they have had enough, the moment they walk away, is the moment the full weight of their value is realized. And by then, it is too late. Think about it. How many people have regretted losing someone only after they were gone? How many times have we seen individuals wake up to the importance of a person only when they are no longer accessible? It is a brutal but necessary truth. Appreciation, when given too late, turns into nothing but regret. This is not just about relationships. It extends to friendships, family bonds, and even professional environments. A boss who undervalues a dedicated employee realizes their mistake only after they leave for a better opportunity. A friend who disregards the loyalty of someone who stood by them suddenly feels their absence like a missing limb. A lover who assumes their partner will always stay despite neglect or mistreatment will eventually find themselves alone, left with nothing but memories and the haunting thought, "Why didn't I appreciate them when I had the chance?" Regret is not a single moment of realization. It is a slow, creeping force that gnaws at the mind. It plays scenes on repeat, moments that could have been different, words that should have been said, actions that should have been taken. The pain of missing someone is one thing, but the agony of knowing it was preventable is something far worse. This is why it is crucial to never ignore the value of the people who genuinely care for you. If someone is patient with you, if they stand by you even when things are difficult, if they offer you their time, energy, and loyalty, do not be foolish enough to assume it will last forever without effort on your part. No one stays where they feel unappreciated forever. The mistake people make is believing that good people will always be there, that their kindness and presence are guarantees. But nothing in life is guaranteed. When you lose someone who truly mattered, it is not just their absence that hurts. It is the realization that you had something extraordinary and you let it slip away, And the worst part? You can't get it back. They have moved on, grown beyond you, and your regret will never bring them back. The price of ignoring value is regret, and regret is a debt that cannot be repaid. Actions have consequences. Every choice we make ripples through time, shaping our lives and the lives of those around us. People like to believe that they can act however they want, that they can neglect, dismiss, or mistreat others without repercussions. But the truth is, no action goes without consequence. You do not get to treat someone poorly and expect them to stay. You do not get to take someone for granted and assume they will always be there. Human relationships operate on an unspoken balance. When someone gives, whether it's love, loyalty, patience, or time, they expect something in return. Maybe not immediately, and maybe not in equal measure, but eventually. When that balance is repeatedly broken, when one person constantly gives while the other takes without acknowledgement, resentment begins to build. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments, dismissive words, unreturned kindness. And then one day, something shifts. The person who was always there suddenly isn't. This is the moment people fail to anticipate. They assume that because someone has stayed through their worst, they will stay forever. They assume that apologies can fix everything, that their past presence will ensure their future loyalty. But there comes a time when a person realizes their own worth, when they see that they deserve better. And when that moment arrives, there is no turning back. The one who took them for granted will be left standing in the wreckage of their own choices, realizing too late that actions have consequences. They will begin to understand that relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, require effort, that no one is obligated to tolerate neglect indefinitely, that just because someone forgave them once, or even 100 times, does not mean they will forgive them forever. And that is when the haunting begins. Regret is not an instant emotion. It is a slow, creeping awareness of what has been lost. It begins with denial. They'll come back, they always do. Then comes the anger. Why are they doing this to me? Followed by bargaining. Maybe if I reach out, if I change, they'll return. But eventually acceptance settles in like a heavy weight on the chest. They're gone, and it's my fault. The most painful realization is this: no amount of regret can undo the past. No amount of wishing can reverse the choices made. They will remember every ignored text, every unkind word, every moment of indifference. They will see with absolute clarity that their own actions pushed this person away, and they will live with that. Actions have consequences. The people who truly matter are not infinite resources, nor are they unbreakable. When they are mistreated, dismissed, or taken for granted, they eventually leave. And when they do, the ones who lost them will finally understand the depth of their mistake, but by then it will be far too late. Growth through loss. Loss is an unforgiving teacher. It does not whisper. It roars. It does not gently nudge. It forces people to confront the brutal reality of their choices. And the most painful losses, the ones that linger, the ones that haunt, are the ones that could have been prevented. When a person loses someone valuable, whether through neglect, indifference, or selfishness, they are forced to face a mirror they have spent years avoiding. That mirror does not show them the version of themselves they like to believe in. It does not reflect their excuses, their justifications, or their self-serving narratives. It shows them the truth. You had something rare, and you let it slip away. At first, they may resist this realization. People like to believe they are the victims of their own stories. They tell themselves that circumstances were to blame, that timing was wrong, that the person who left was unreasonable or impatient. But as time passes, the truth becomes harder to ignore. The common denominator in their losses is always them. This is where the choice emerges. Loss can do one of two things. It can break a person, leaving them trapped in an endless cycle of regret, or it can wake them up. The pain of losing someone valuable can be a catalyst for growth if they allow it to be. But growth is not a passive process. It is an act of will. It requires a person to dissect their own flaws, to admit their failures, to take responsibility for the pain they have caused. And that is no easy task. Real growth demands accountability. It forces a person to ask the hard questions. Why did I take them for granted? Why did I assume they would always stay? What part of me allowed this to happen? These questions are uncomfortable because they strip away illusions. They expose patterns of selfishness, insecurity, or neglect that many would rather not confront. But for those who do confront them, something incredible happens. They begin to change, not out of desperation to win someone back, but because they recognize that they cannot afford to be the same person who caused this loss. They see, perhaps for the first time, that true connection requires effort, appreciation, and reciprocity. However, growth does not come with a reward. The person they lost is not obligated to return. In many cases, they never do. That is another harsh lesson. Self-improvement should never be done with the expectation of undoing the past. It should be done because the person who emerges from that pain is one who will never make the same mistake again. Losing someone valuable is not just about absence. It is a reckoning. It is the universe holding up a mirror and demanding an answer. Who will you become now that you know what you have lost? The ones who truly evolve will never need to ask that question again. The ones who don't, they will remain haunted by their own choices forever. The haunting of what could have been. Regret is not just about what was lost, it is about what could have been. It is not just the pain of absence, it is the torment of unrealized potential. The deepest regret does not come from losing someone. It comes from knowing that, with a little more effort, a little more care, things could have turned out differently. The mind is relentless in this kind of suffering. It does not simply let go. Instead, it replays old conversations, old memories, old possibilities. What if I had been more patient? What if I had appreciated them more? What if I had just said the words they needed to hear? These questions do not bring answers. They bring torment. They create a ghost that lingers, one that follows them through every quiet moment, whispering reminders of what they threw away. This is the cost of taking someone for granted. The weight of knowing that the future they could have built with this person no longer exists. That the life they assumed they had time to fix, to repair, to nurture, has vanished. And worse, that it was not stolen from them, they let it slip away with their own hands. It is human nature to assume there will always be another chance, that a person who loves us will always be there, waiting, no matter how long it takes for us to realize their worth. But people do not wait forever. They move on, they heal, they find others who recognize their value before it is too late. And that is where the true haunting begins, not in loneliness, but in watching someone you once had a future with build that future with someone else. There is no suffering quite like the pain of seeing someone thrive without you, knowing that it could have been you standing beside them, if only you had treated them better, if only you had cared enough, soon enough. But regret does not change the past. It cannot rewrite history, no matter how much a person wishes it could. There is no magic moment of realization that bring someone back once they've outgrown you. There is only the empty space they left behind and the constant gnawing knowledge that things could have been different. This is why people must learn to cherish those who matter before it is too late, because once they are gone, and no amount of regret, no amount of desperate longing will bring them back. The worst kind of haunting is not by ghosts of the dead, it is by the memories of the living, the laughter that will never be heard again, the touch that will never return, the words that will never be spoken. And that is what regret truly is, not just sorrow for the past, but the unbearable weight of what could have been. Your worth remains, with or without them. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: not everyone who loses you deserves a second chance. Not everyone who regrets their actions should be allowed back into your life. Their regret is theirs to bear, not your burden to carry. When someone finally realizes what they lost, they may come back. They may apologize, promise change, beg for another opportunity. But where were those realizations when you were still there? Where was that urgency when you were waiting for them to appreciate you? The mistake many people make is equating someone's regret with proof of their own worth. They think, if they miss me, then I must have mattered. If they want me back, then I must be valuable. But your value does not come from their regret. Your worth existed before they lost you, and it will continue to exist long after they do. A person who only realizes your importance in your absence is someone who never truly saw it when it mattered. And that is not someone who deserves the privilege of your presence again. This is where self-respect must take over. It is easy to get caught in the cycle of waiting for someone to change, of hoping that their regret will somehow transform them into the person you always needed them to be. But growth does not happen overnight, and regret alone is not enough to erase the past. True strength comes from recognizing that you were never the problem. You were never too much or too difficult or too demanding. You simply asked for the bare minimum: respect, appreciation, consistency, and they failed to give it. That is not your fault. That is not your shame to carry. If someone loses you due to their own actions, their own neglect, their own failure to appreciate what they had, then let them live with that loss, let them learn their lesson, but do not make it your responsibility to ease their guilt. The best thing you can do, the strongest, most powerful response, is to move forward, to thrive, to build the life you deserve without them in it. Nothing haunts a person more than seeing the one they took for granted flourish without them. Nothing weighs heavier on the soul than knowing they had something irreplaceable and let it slip away. But this is not about revenge. This is about self-respect, about knowing that the right people will never put you in a position where you have to question your worth. The right people will never need to lose you to realize your value. So let their regret haunt them. Let them wrestle with the consequences of their choices. And you walk forward, unburdened, knowing that your worth was never dependent on their recognition of it. Because in the end, the regret of losing you will haunt them forever. But you will be free.